Okay, we have a little update on our Wings of Wonder project. As you can see, cockpit view. I'm sitting at the joystick control. Now, of course, this bulkhead here will be partially cut out in order to make way for the opening of the cockpit, which will basically swing around, come across, swing back around here. So, of course, this is going to be strong to where it's going to support stringers. All right, but when I put my metal to make my hoop for the top of the cockpit, this will be gone, and my joystick, of course, will be able to come back to engage my engagement rod. All right, so yeah, I have the floor pan in. It's not folded down, it's just kind of sitting there, but it's a very thick piece of metal sitting on top of my my angle iron floorboards. So this thing's not going anywhere. I am eventually going to put a hump panel here to protect this engagement rod. I don't want anybody, namely myself, to step on this while I'm getting in or out of the ride here. So I'm going to put a piece of metal across here that's going to be I'll weld some nuts underneath this floor pan so I can bolt this hump down over top of this, and it'll continue back a flat piece of metal. And you'll see I had to split the floor pan right here so I can get this floor pan in to slip it up underneath of this pipe. So that flange for the hump will come across down. It'll be bolted down here with the flange. It'll be flat across here, and I'll finish it up with some flange bolts down here and of course up here. So that'll protect that real nice. All right, so I have my my brake system almost complete, but I have a real nice brake pedal, very thick. I think it would stop a Mack truck if I needed to. I put bushings in it, grade 8 bolts, because I always use grade 8 bolts. You can see I have a rod end for adjustment of my brake pedal, so I can thread this in and out and lock nut it. I also have a maximum major adjustment, so if I had to make a major adjustment to my pedal, I can always move this back one. So that would give me a major adjustment, and then I could fine tune it with this. All right, you're probably wondering, and this of course is a nice thick bracket bolted through, but I have a flat piece of channel metal down over here, and my grade 8 bolts go through that and into the back with nuts. Now, the reason for this, I left this on here because this is eventually going to come around like a piece of metal, solid piece of braced metal that's going to be kind of coming down this way. And what's going to happen there is I'm going to have a spring that's going to be kind of connected from that to below this area down here. It's a spring, and that's what's going to return my pedal back up to the top. And again, it doesn't need much. That's all the movement this pedal has. Of course, when I put my foot on it, it does go a little bit further, but it doesn't need much. As you can see, that caliper locks up very quick. So that's what this little task for is going to just be a continuation of my spring return for my pedal to come back to the top. All right, so yeah, so this is real nice. This is a solid 3/8 rod. I put a sleeve, a pipe sleeve on top. So this rod is inside the sleeve about halfway welded. And I have this grade 8 bolt. I cut the head off. I have that halfway welded. That's nice and solid. Again, that's my adjustment. This is a spacer, so I can line it up nice and neat. I didn't want to put a bunch of bends in my rod. I tried to keep it as straight as possible, because when you bend it, that's just a lot of leverage on that bend, and it may start to really bend the whole rod. So I put a spacer in here. You see it's just to give me that gap. All right, spacer spins. That's because I have a lock nut here, and I have a self-locking nut there. So yeah, really happy with that. This thing stops really quick. I'll see if I can pull it forward and slam the brake on. So yeah, it works really well. Now, as you can see here, I put this inside of a pipe. I welded some clamps or some metal band metal down on this pipe, and I have them bolted to the undercarriage of my angle iron, so it's nice and rigid. This is regular gas pipe. Now, the reason why I did that is because this is a long rod. It's about almost 4 foot long. And when you have a rod that long and you put a lot of pressure on it, this rod will have a tendency to want to bend, maybe typically in the middle or somewhere at a weak point. So you put it inside of a pipe like this, and there's no way that rod's going to bend, because this pipe will keep it from doing that. It lets it flow through it. It's a nice big pipe. It lets the rod travel through it easily, but yet it keeps it from bending. All right. the other reason for the big pipe, if I ever need to take this rod out of here, I can disconnect it back here on the caliper. I can take this bolt off here. This is all a welded piece of plate steel in there as well. Take this bolt out. I can literally undo this bolt, take the rod end off, and I can slide this rod out the back of the plane and change it, whatever I gotta do. Maintain it, grease it, whatever the case may be. So yeah, so you see I brought this pipe clear back here, nice and far. There's no way that rod's bending, and that's all the movement that brake pedal needs. That's it. It locks it up tight. Okay. So it works real well. On my floor pan, I even angled the metal up in the back. It's just bent up. You can see it's very thick metal. And I did that across in various areas. And the reason for that is when I put my metal now here, this is going to keep all the mechanics away from the pilot. But this piece of metal is going to come down and around, and this will be a nice spot to fasten that to with some bolts. All right. And then I'll put my seat in. Kind of be hoping to get sort of a rounded seat in there just to kind of make it comfortable. All right, so that all works out pretty well. The nose cone, I have my piece of metal that I made earlier. You can see it's tapered. It's band metal, and I had to roll this. Now, I don't have a metal roller. I like to get one. I don't. I've gotten pretty decent about putting metal in my vise and slowly bending it, and I can get a pretty decent circle. I mean, this thing is almost perfectly round, and that's just by putting it in my vise, slowly bending little by little all the way around, and then I tweak it, and I can get them pretty round. You can see. So here's my nose cone I mentioned earlier. This is my baking or mixing bowl, very thick stainless, so it's a nice bowl. But you can see the end of the cone is blunt. So my thought is perhaps I'll get myself a piece of round stock aluminum, about 4 inches in diameter, and I'll put it on my lathe and go ahead and machine it into a cone. And then I'll thread the center of the cone. I'll drill a hole through here, and then I'm probably going to have maybe a single brace or a cross brace in here with a large nut on it, with a piece of all thread rod coming out. And that way I can literally stick my cone over top of my round piece, and the all thread rod will come through the front, and then I can spin this cone on it to lock it down like a large nut. So I'll make this cone a large nut, and it kind of looks like I won't put a sharp point on it, but I want to put I think a little bit more rounded of a point. We'll see. All right, so you can see this thing looks pretty cool with that cone. I'll move back up a little bit. So yeah, it's pretty neat. This thing's really coming along. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do with that. So nice and straight, coming along well. Floor pans looks really good, very solid. I'm really happy with it. And so once I get this cockpit pretty much finished in here, the inside of it, that's when I'm going to start the back. Of course, the F-18 Hornet is a dual engine, so it has two exhaust pipes next to each other. I'm not going to do that with this plane. I'm just going to make it a single exhaust, just to kind of make it something simple and easy. All right, so this will come in and kind of give me a little bit more of a teardrop shape, bring it in a little bit, probably somewhere around there, I would say. And then put my wings and my elevators on. So that's the next thing after I put this seat in, get this all finished in the cockpit, get the floor fastened down, and then I'll start on my back. So right now I got quite a bit done. Floor pan, ready to go up with the bulkhead in the back here, and I got my brake system, which was a big gain there. So I was glad to get that finished, and it turned out really well. It's nice and lined up, and I think it's pretty cool looking. Alrighty, that's it.